Welcome back to Essentials. We're so glad that you are here with us and continuing in this study. And today we'll be in the Gospel of Matthew. Colin, can you tell us more about where we are in the Gospel of Matthew?
Yeah, so our passage comes from the 16th chapter of Matthew, really important passage, understood to be the climax of the first half of the Gospel, and it's a turning point for the story. So Jesus has returned from the Gentile regions. When he returns, he is met by some Jewish religious leaders who demand a miracle. He refuses. He tells his disciples to be wary of their leadership. Okay. And then he asks the disciples a question. He says, "Who do people say that I am? When people talk about me, what are they saying?" He then pushes them a little further, and he says, "Well, what about you? Who do you say that I am?" That's, of course, when Peter gives his famous confession. He says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of God." And then Jesus responds by telling Peter that he'll be the rock on which Jesus will build his church. And he says this, "Peter, I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." So the passage, it speaks about the establishment of the church, building the church on the rock of Peter, and about Peter's authority in his leadership role in the church.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the keys that Peter is given, and in this image, this is what we're exploring this week, is the image of keys. What does Jesus mean when he says, "I will give you the keys to the kingdom"? Sounds like a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we find this image of keys throughout the scriptures. You find it in Isaiah, you find it in Revelation. But the image of a key, it's an image of power and authority. Important people carry keys. If someone is given the keys to the city in a modern day, it's an honor. They're being recognized for their importance to that city. So it's a mark of power and authority and importance, but it's also has a function. Keys open things. They open doors. They open gates. If you come to a door and it's locked, well, then you need a key to get through. And so what Jesus is doing here, he's imagining the kingdom of heaven as a city, and you're going to enter into this city through a gate, the city gate, and Peter is given the keys to this gate. The gates of the kingdom of heaven, they need to be opened if people are going to go in. And that's what Jesus wants. Jesus doesn't want to exclude anyone from the kingdom of heaven. He wants people to enter in. This idea of entering into the kingdom of heaven is something that Jesus talks about a lot in Matthew. In Matthew 5, the first time we meet it, he talks to the disciples and says, "Unless your righteousness exceeds the Pharisees and the scribes, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven." Okay. And so here, again, Peter is being given the keys, the authority to open this gate to let people into the kingdom.
Okay. Now, when I think about keys, I often think about in the Episcopal Church that the junior warden is given the keys to the church, and they kind of determine who comes in and who comes out, and all like that. Are you saying that Peter decides who gets in and who's able to come through the gates of heaven? Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, I think it's a little more nuanced than that. Okay. I mean, Peter clearly is being given spiritual authority here, and we know that his authority was unchallenged in the early church, had immense authority. But I don't think we're supposed to see Peter as an ecclesiastical power figure on whose personal decision hangs people's fate. Rather, Peter's possession of the keys primarily involves him pointing to Jesus as the Christ, confessing him as the Son of God, and then relaying to others as well what he's learned from Jesus. Peter is now in the position to receive the keys because he's come to the place of insight and confession of who Jesus is. So he can actually use the keys. And of course, we see Peter use these keys throughout the New Testament as his ministry is described. Okay. We see him opening the gate for people. On Pentecost, 3,000 people came into the kingdom of heaven. He opens the gate for Cornelius the Gentile, right? The
Yes.
centurion.
Okay.
Acts 15, the great council of Jerusalem, we're told that it's Peter's witness and his authority that opened the gate for all non-Jews. So really it's more of a question of his ability to open the gate through his confession of who Jesus is.
Okay. That's exciting. Well, so this sounds really great. Can you tell us really what this means for the church today? How does this affect us in our daily lives and in our life and ministry in the church?
Well, first, I think it speaks to the fact that our ministry is rooted first and foremost in our confession of Jesus as the Christ. And it does speak to the authority also that God gives individuals in the church today, right? The keys. The church is an ordered reality where individuals are commissioned by God to have spiritual authority. A few weeks ago we talked about the church, thinking of the church as a nation. And just as in the nation you have leaders who are authorized, given authority to govern, in the church God commissions actual leaders to do his work in worship. But this authority, again, this is what we have to remember, this authority is given to help people enter into the kingdom of heaven, to open the gates for them through and because of their confession of Jesus as the Christ.
Wonderful. Well, I hope as you consider these passages, as you consider this image, that you will hear more fully from each other the ways that Christ invites us into the kingdom and the ways that he uses his own people to do so. So I hope you have a great discussion this week, and we look forward to seeing you again back next week. Thank you.